Up next, we have a keynote session by Dr. Frank Hornung, Global CEO of Edelmann Group, Germany. Under his leadership, Edelmann has expanded its operation to 13 locations across 7 countries, employing approximately 3,000 people worldwide. A round of applause, please. Dr. Hornung has a PhD in economics and has accumulated 27 years of leadership excellence across various industries, including over a decade in the packaging sector. Dr. Hornung's leadership is characterized by his ability to drive business transformation, execute strategies efficiently and effectively, and foster a culture of innovation and growth. Today, it's our privilege to have Dr. Hornung with us, who will share his insights on the printing industry. Let's put our hands together to welcome Dr. Hornung to the stage.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Feel like he was overselling me a little bit. So, good morning. It's about 8 months ago that I had dinner with a friend. And while we were discussing career plans and business, he asked me a very simple question at the time, a question that has been on my mind ever since. He asked me, Frank, what do you do to make sure that the companies that you run, that are led by you, outlast your own leadership era? Or in other words, what do you think have companies like Sony, Ford, Disney, Tata, or even Edelmann for that sake have in common to last so long and outlast others? It's actually a simple question, isn't it? But the answer is not that quite simple, but I'll try to be very generic. All the companies that I've just mentioned, they have founders who built organizations that outlasted themselves, outlasted their founders, and they still exist. So there must be answers to the questions, why do some companies last longer than others? Wouldn't you like to be part of the club of the Henry Fords and the Disney brothers? You know, being retired and looking back at your own business that you've built, and you see it developing even without you being on board. What would that feel like? Isn't that a fantastic thing to think about? So are there recipes, the question of today, are there recipes to build such long-lasting organizations? And if they are, can we apply them to our business? When I thought about the question, I went through my humble experience, 25 plus years in various fields, in all of them international companies, in the industrial sector, actually in the biotechnology sector, and half of my professional career in the packaging field. And I also went through literature and a bit of empirical research. And I screened through my job assignments, the things that I was asked to do for these international companies, which in most parts were pimping up underperforming companies, restructuring them so that they have a future again. And when I looked at all that, I came across a few basic, very simple principles that I thought, why not sharing with you? It's nothing breathtaking, I must admit. There are reasons why some companies live longer than others. And as I said, it's not breathtaking. The flip side is, what I found and have to tell you just simply requires a little bit of discipline to apply. So these formulas for longevity, not very, very complicated. So I'll encourage you, by the end of this talk, you might have learned 10 things. Stay curious, think along, put it in the perspective of your own business, and bear with me. What is driving people to keep on going even though the leader goes off board, right? That's the question. What is driving a sportsman to undergo daily practice tortures, no matter who the coach is? What made a NASA engineer back in the 1950s work night and day? Or why does a sailor stand his ground on deck, no matter what the weather is? What keeps those people keep on doing what they do? What is it that keeps people motivated despite of tortures they might undergo, despite of the daily hassles and never-ending challenges that in current times, and you mentioned it, come faster than ever before? You may simply say it's the paycheck. You may say it's a contractual obligation. But in fact, I don't think so. I think it's probably something else. The sportsman, the NASA engineer, the sailor, and people in business. These guys are all motivated by reaching a higher target, by winning a medal, by shooting for the moon, by reaching a far-out target. And people in business, in particular leaders, are no different to the NASA engineer, to a sportsman or a sailor. People in business, your teams, they need a far-out target like a sailor or the sportsman. You will recognize that, by the way, when you conduct interviews with candidates for leadership positions in your own business. And the good guys probably ask you about your far-out target for the company. They want to understand where the business is aiming at in the long run. So they want guidance from a higher level, telling them what for they are fighting fires. They ultimately need this far-out target that motivates them. Your imagination of where the business can end up being one day. They need your vision. Like the sportsman or the sailor who have the vision to win a medal or to reach a far-out target. They want guidance from a higher level. And we heard you talking about Mr. Joseph, who gave this vision for the association. A far-out target, a just case, a vision is such a guidance from a higher level, because such a vision is something that inspires and motivates. It can make people obsessed of achieving. It's beyond our own imagination very often. It needs us to be creative to achieve. It gives a bit of a sense of purpose and belonging. It's like shooting for the moon. And if you fail, you're still among the stars. So a sportsman undergoes all the tortures of daily practicing only to reach a higher target. And a sailor is fulfilling his role on deck, no matter what the weather is, to reach a far-out target. And also your teams will accept tough times if they understand why they're in the game. Your people do not follow you. Your people do not follow you. They follow your inspiration. They follow your vision. So close your eyes and imagine, just for a second, close your eyes and imagine you're an experienced captain on a sailing boat. Your dream of circumnavigating the world with your boat. So your vision is to take your boat around the globe. And you're the captain, and you can go out and hire the crew that you now need. But I tell you, only sailors who share your vision, your inspirational target, will sign up. Only sailors who share the vision of circumnavigating the world will join you. They don't sign up because you are the captain. They sign up because they buy into your vision. But a vision without execution is hallucination. Vision without execution is hallucination. It is important to have a vision, as I said, but if you cannot execute on your vision, if you don't take the effort to reach your far-out target, there's no point of having one. So the challenge now is, how do you execute your vision? How do you make it happen? Of course, you can hire a sailing crew, and as I said, sailors who are inspired by your vision will join you. But obviously, your crew will want to know the way, in which direction to set the sails. You have to find a way to your far-out target, the way to your vision. This description of the way to your vision, that's your strategy. There's so many routes you can take to circumnavigate the world. You have to make choices. You have to make choices. You can start your journey going east. You can also start your journey going west. There's an endless numbers of routes that you can take. But strategy is all about choices. You have to make choices. You have to make choices to avoid running around in circles. Executing your vision actually means working out a way to get there, to reach your far-out target. If you don't decide on a way, but you simply go with the wind, achieving your target will ultimately be a coincidence, a matter of good luck. A strategy is needed to avoid floating in the sea like a cork that only goes with the wind. So it is the sail that dictates the direction, not the wind. And you need to work out a way to circumnavigate the world so that you can set the sails accordingly. But even though you have decided now on the way you take towards your vision, your far-out target, your sailors will still ask for more. They will want to know the next step on the way. So what's wrong with the sailors? You might say, I've given them a vision, a far-out target. I've given them a way description, my strategy, and they still want to know more. Why on earth would they need the next step on the journey? What's the point, you may ask? But I think you also know the answer. It will enable your crew to help you, support you in planning and execution. With the next milestone on the way, your team can now assess risks, work out contingency plans, a plan B, or think about, food for your people on deck. If you know the next step, you can plan and fill your warehouse. The next step on your journey are your annual objectives in your business. Measurable targets that you want to achieve on your way to your vision. By measuring your business against those objectives, you can assess whether you are on a good way to execute on your strategy. You can assess whether you are still on the right path. Without these short-term measurable targets, how do you know that you're on the right way? And breaking the strategy down into smaller steps also helps your organization to relate to the past, to see how their daily work contributes to executing the strategy. Because not all people, manage to relate to your vision. Not all people might understand your strategy. So to make it more relatable, more understandable, smaller and visible targets that can be executed by your teams will help your organization to see their own contribution. If you keep that all to yourself, how can you expect the crew to keep on sailing your desired direction if you go off board, if you keep that all yourself? In the metaphor of sailing, maybe a short-term next step target could be to reach Thailand from Kochi, if you start here, within 30 days. However, it's slightly more needed than just breaking down the way into small steps. Actually, what you need to build a long-lasting company is you need to embed a process in your organization to regularly break down the larger picture into smaller, relatable steps. It needs to become sort of an annual habit to break down strategic objectives into smaller relatable targets. While you may not change your vision every year, and you certainly do not change your strategy every year, your next steps, your immediate next targets, they will change continuously as you progress and advance on your journey. It's like on your way from Kochi to Thailand, you may already think about what's my next destination. You're not going to wait and be surprised. With such a process in place, and that's why I'm telling you, and the discipline obviously to follow the process by your management team, your guiding hand will become less of importance. So what I told you so far is not really breathtaking. I was warning you in the beginning. I'll basically tell you, you need an inspirational far-out target, a vision. You have to tell your crew the way how to get there. And obviously, I'm telling you, embed a process into your organization that breaks down the way into smaller, relatable targets. Now, I hate to tell you that also your personal style matters. Your leadership style matters. And for that, I want to refer to Jim Collins, which is a researcher, and he analyzed 1,400 companies. 1,400 companies. And only 11 out of 1,400 companies stood out. Only 11 of these companies distinguished themselves from others. They outperformed their industries and their markets multiple times over the period of 15 years. And Jim Collins, the researcher, he found out what distinguished those 11 companies from all the other 1,424 companies in his survey. And he identified a unique and rare, but very simple leadership style that made these companies more successful than others. All of these companies were in common that they were led by a humble but very driven leader. According to the research, leaders who are modest at one side but willful at the same time, leaders who put success of the company over their own richness and reputation, are more successful. Those leaders don't talk about themselves, but instead they emphasize the performance of the organization, of their teams, of others in the organization when it comes to praise. People who work for such great leaders would describe them as sort of modest, shy, humble, self-mannered, gracious, self-effacing, understated, and so forth. However, and unfortunately, the majority of great leaders is egocentric, see themselves as a reason for success, and favor their own richness, and are motivated by compensation and reputation. Still, these are great leaders, don't get me wrong. It's great leaders. But superior leaders will apportion credit to factors outside themselves. Superior leaders will accept responsibility and not blame it to bad luck if things go poorly. And I think the good news is we can learn to become such superior leaders with a bit of self-reflection, maybe conscious personal development, a coach, a trainer, and as I said, self-reflection. On the long run, people tend to follow leaders they can relate to. Leaders who seem to be one of them. So, as we are in there for the long run, leadership traits such as humility, combined with professional will, are traits to be considered. I encourage all of us, let's not glamorize ourselves. Let's not get ourselves into our way. Instead, let's stay humble, modest, while pursuing our vision with professional will and drive. And I tell you, get the right people on board to support you. If you have the right people on board, the problem of how to motivate and manage largely goes away. The right people don't need to be tightly managed or fired up. They will be self-motivated by their inner drive to produce the best results. When I took over Edelmann the company was in a crisis situation from accelerated growth, from acquisitions. A good thing, you would think. The business tripled in size in a really short period of time. But the organization was simply incapable of dealing with all the new issues that popped up with growth and the international breadth of the larger business. And I must admit, I inherited a pretty weak management team. I do remember I came away from my first management meetings quite distressed because neither could I get comments out of the management team, nor could I even get a conflict into the management team. They were all just simply waiting to see which way the wind blew. I had to address the issue of incapable leaders. I had to rebuild my second row in command, and I wanted to rebuild my second row in command to make it the best second row possible. So I brought in people to whom I could delegate big tasks, knowing that they would get it done. People who were self-motivated and motivated by the task and by the perspective to be part of developing something great. People who were not afraid to drive things. People who were not afraid of setbacks that inevitably happen. People who were driven but modest themselves. People who would not blindly follow me, but who would have their own opinion. People who were motivated to speak up, but also not afraid and fearless to walk through fires. In short, I hired leaders who served as engines on a sailing boat. They, in particular one lady, made the difference. They moved the ship forward faster than the ship ever moved before. And jointly we managed to quadruple, times 4, quadruple the profitability of the business in only a reasonably short period of time. So I'm telling you, hire the best second level in command you can find to set your business up for enduring and long-term success. If you are a genius, you might not need a strong team supporting you. Genius people actually sometimes don't even want that, and that's fine. The problem is only if the genius leaves, the helpers are often lost, or even worse, they try to mimic their predecessor and come up with bold visionary moves, trying to act like a genius without being one. That's very dangerous. So let me build and tell you about the lady that I've just mentioned. Not only was she an engine to the sailing boat, but also was she an energizer to the rest of the organization. I admire her way to bring the best out of people and her way to energize others. I tell you, it's very difficult to learn being an energizer. It's very difficult to learn. But if you find one, I can only encourage you, keep them, coach them, make them leaders. It will pay back. And I tell you, most likely, you have such energizers in your organization already. And if you want to know who they are in your organization, simply ask everyone in your organization, please name the top 3 people who give you job-related energy. And just count the mentions thereafter. And there you have your energizers in your business. Very often it's the hidden people who energize others. And I'm convinced that we need, not only need the leaders who effectively and efficiently pursue goals and targets, but also we need leaders who energize the organization, who enrich interaction and inspire others. So look for energy givers, people who serve as energy engines on your boat, people who drive others forward. Think about it. If we all and everyone in your organization will get their second row in command in the best possible shape, life would be easy. Life would be easy. It would reduce your own role to steering the wheel, and that's it. A word of caution: in doubt, don't hire. In doubt, don't promote. It's easier said than done. Let me now move on and introduce to you a concept that I encourage you to consider. A concept that will create a trustful organization over time, a concept that creates trust over time, a concept that we tend to ignore. I'm talking about something very simple, and still we tend to ignore it because we can ignore it. I'm talking about transparency. Transparency means that you say what you think even though it's not easy. Transparency means that you speak up and do not hide anything. Transparency means that you explain your thoughts before making a decision. Transparency means that you give and provide honest feedback and you provide for an open communication. Look, I manage about 3,000 people. I can make so many decisions just by myself. But instead, I explain my thoughts and thinking to my management team. I do believe in different opinions. It might be inconvenient at times, but it makes the business stronger. Even where there are conflictual conversations, where people have different opinions, you find better solutions. And I understand, it means moving away from the almighty CEO who knows it all towards an organization with diversity of opinions and better decisions as a result. That's why we do that. If you want your people not to hide mistakes, a common thing in business, right? You sweep it under the carpet. If you want your people not to hide mistakes, you need to do the same. You need to have the courage to put your things on the table in the first place. You cannot lead untransparent yourself and expect transparency from your organization. But it also means that you make yourself vulnerable to an extent. And yes, I can hear you say, look, this takes so much time, I have to debate and discuss things now where I normally could simply plow ahead. Why would I do that? And you're right, this takes an effort. It indeed takes an effort, but you can plan for it. When I look at me and my own management team, we have a standing meeting every Monday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have pizza, we laugh, have fun, no agenda. 4 p.m., 7 p.m., 3 hours a week. And I simply put on the table what's on my mind. Where do I think are my concerns coming from? What is the investment that I think about? What was the success story in the last 8 days? And my team does exactly the same with their issues and topics. Sometimes we have quick solutions, sometimes we define a project, sometimes we don't know how to proceed, but at least I have heard about their issues already. If you play it open with your teams, they'll play it open with you as well in return. And this way you learn much more about what's going on in your business compared to any report you might get. And on the long run, and that's why I'm telling you, on the long run, transparency creates trust. Transparency creates trust. That's why I'm saying that. You'll start relying on your people. You will rely that if something goes wrong, they'll tell you. You don't need reports to find out. You're not checking so much anymore. The time that you spend on transparency pays back multiple times once trust kicks in. It's so much easier to work with people if there is trust. It's so much more complicated if there isn't. Developing a trusted organization through transparency does not mean operating without facts and figures. The contrary is true. Let me come back to the sailing crew. Do you think the captain steers his ship through the ocean, relying on gut feeling and emotions only? No. The captain uses modern navigation system, weather forecasts, basing decisions on facts and figures, and you do exactly the same in your private lives. Think of your own health. Would you want your medical doctor to set a diagnosis and pick a treatment based on his gut feelings and emotions? Or do you want your doctor to base his decisions on clinical data, diagnostic tests, and evidence-based guidelines? You don't want to mess around with your life, and hence you want a professional data-based advice. Why not with your own company? Why not? All too often, critical decisions are based on emotions, instinct, or gut feeling. Think of investments. think of pricing decisions. Now, in my career, I helped many businesses to progress. Often these businesses were family-owned businesses, and I found one thing in common in almost all of these businesses. It was decisions based on emotions, gut feelings, not substantiated by data. Many of these companies I had to help were in serious problems, and all of them, because of the consequences of wrong decisions. I'm not saying that you should not rely on your gut feeling, ignore your instinct or your entrepreneurial spirit. I'm saying, I'm not saying don't take risk, but I'm saying be conscious of the risk that you take. Could the risk ruin your legacy, kill your business? What are the odds or likelihood of being successful? I tell you, the worst emotional decision that I have seen in my career, all related to selling prices, for example, when the fear of losing a business overwhelms rational thinking, decisions are made that are often bad to the profit line. Too many businesses accept low or no margins rather than walking away from the business, even though walking away would be the right decision. So data helps you to reduce uncertainty in your decision-making process. I tell you, facts are better than emotions in business decisions. Rely on data, rely on facts, rely on figures. Or as one of my team members put it, in God we trust, all others bring numbers. Facts and figures can be brutal though. I tell you, facts and figures can be brutal. Imagine you turn rocks and you look underneath the rocks and you find all the squiggly little things underneath it. Now you have the choice. You can put down the rock again, or you can do something about it. You face the facts and do something about it. So we as leaders, we have to create a climate where the truth, the brutal facts are heard and confronted. And I tell you, it's a difference between an organization where you have the opportunity to have your say versus the opportunity to be heard. So it's our job of creating an organization, even a culture wherein people have an opportunity to be heard, because that will increase your chance of a long-lasting company multiple times if they have a chance to be heard. So if you want to build an organization that outlasts you, you better build a climate of where the truth is heard and facts are confronted. Don't hide away from sometimes the brutal facts of the business. Now let me move on to the next little advice. And for this one, I want to tell you about foxes and hedgehogs. Isaiah Berlin wrote an essay once, a long time ago, and he called the essay "The Hedgehog and the Fox." In this essay, he very simply divided mankind, people, into two basic groups, foxes and hedgehogs. It's based on a Greek parable, and keep it short, the fox knows many things and the hedgehog knows one big thing. So the fox is a cunning creature, right? It's able to develop complex strategies for sneak attack upon the hedgehog. Day in, day out, the fox circles around the hedgehog den, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Fast, sleek, beautiful, and crafty. The fox looks like the sure winner. The hedgehog, on the other hand, is a dowdier creature, a bit of a mixture, a genetic mixture between a porcupine and a little armadillo. He waddles along, going about his simple day, searching for lunch and taking care of his home. The fox waits in cunning silence at the juncture of the trail, and the hedgehog, minding his own business, wanders right into the path of the fox. "Ah! I've got you now," thinks the fox. He leaps out, bouncing across the ground, lightning fast. The little hedgehog, sensing danger, looks up and thinks, "Ah, here we go again. Will he ever learn?" rolling up into a perfect little ball. The hedgehog becomes a sphere of sharp spikes pointing outward in all directions. The fox sees the hedgehog's defense and calls off the attack. Retreating back to the forest, the fox begins to calculate a new way of attack. Each day, some version of this battle between the hedgehog and the fox takes place, and despite of the greater cunning of the fox, the hedgehog always wins. So as I said, Berlin took that parable and divided the world into two basic groups, hedgehogs and foxes. And while foxes pursue many ends at the same time, see the world in all its complexity, they move on many levels, but they never integrate their thinking into one unifying concept. The hedgehog, on the other hand, he simplifies a complex world into a single organizing idea, a basic principle or concept that unifies everything. It does not matter how complex the world is. The hedgehog reduces complexities to a simple, even simplistic idea. We might all favor to be a cunning fox, but the truth is, success comes with keeping things simple. With simplicity, you cut to the chase. You address the real root cause of an issue. So, we all have the decision to make. Do we want to be foxes or hedgehogs? I have two more pieces of advice for you, and this one is about creating an engaged organization by putting people first. I'm sorry, that was the wrong slide. Leaders come and go, but a strong, empowered, or engaged workforce is there to stay. And I know this sounds like another cliche, but in fact, if you dive deeper into the concept, it isn't. It isn't. Putting people first is actually a strategic choice with a value. A people-first culture has a direct effect on your profits and on your reputation. If people feel like they're not appreciated, if people feel like their work is not appreciated, they won't stay for long, right? They come and go. It costs time and money, find and train people. People who are happy on the other side, they tend to stay longer. They tend to work harder, even to their own limitations. And they build your company's reputation. By sharing the good things about the company, either by, through talking to others or even social media. You have to respect that, people are important. If you take away people from our business, you don't have a business anymore. You end up with a building filled with a bunch of stuff and technology, but this doesn't make a business. Even without all of the automation and technology, you still need people to have a business. So make sure your people are appreciated, so that they remain interested in your business, and so that they remain engaged. I mean, a simple example of disengaged people is when there's a sheet of paper lying on the floor and you just walk by. It's none of my business, right? Well, engaged people certainly behave differently. You find disengagement, by the way, in your own organization easily when you find finger pointing. These guys, this department has a problem. That's one of the best signs of disengagement, by the way. Okay. So even though you are the captain, you're the CEO, you're the leader, you're the owner, you still need your people. You still, on the ship, need the crew to set the sails, to plug the holes, to observe the sea, to feed the crew. You need your people, in short. So what I'm telling you is treat them well, treat them with respect, no matter which hierarchy they belong to. Make sure that people feel appreciated and valued. They are important crew members. It's not complicated, by the way. I'm not talking about money or so. I'm talking about the little gestures depending on the culture. Some cultures just greet each other no matter which hierarchy you come from. If you don't know what people value to work for you, or if you don't know what people don't value working for you, simply go out and ask them. We'll do the same when we travel to our locations, we always ask, why do people favor working for Edelmann as opposed to any other business they could work for? What you'll get is engagement in return. If you treat your people well, you get engagement in return. So what you have learned is so far, provide a vision, a far-out target. Tell people the way to the far-out target, your vision, the strategy, but then make it relatable by breaking it down into small little steps that people understand. I also told you that a humble but driven leadership style is superior, and that a strong second row in command makes the difference. And you might have now understood that transparency creates trust. Decisions should be fact-based. It's your job to keep things simple. And appreciation results in an engaged workforce. All things that stabilize your company and set it up for an enduring life. 9 tips. I promise 10. 9 tips. And when I shared these 9 things with my fellow friend who asked the question, he could easily relate to what I was saying. It's not breathtaking, as I was saying in the beginning. It takes a bit of discipline maybe to apply one or the other. You don't need to apply all of it. It's just 9 tips. One thing is missing, and he gave me the thing that was missing at the end. And it was not his wisdom. It was not his wisdom. Actually, it was Barack Obama who said it once in an interview. He nailed it spot on in my mind. He said, above all, get things done. It's not about listening to my speech. It's not about reading books. It's not about success stories. It's like learn things, but then get them done. Very, very simple thing, but get things done. And this is my last little sentence to you. Don't look at others as they write history. Go and write your own history. Take one of the 10 or any of the 10 advices. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention, and have a great convention. Thank you so much.